Today we're going right back to 1967 to look at the Pye Pocketfone PF1, which was extensively used by the emergency services and others in the late 1960s and early 1970s. And when they later came onto the surplus market in the late 70s and early 80s, they were extensively used by radio hams as well. And we were using these on our local 70cent repeater. The first part of the video will give an overview of the equipment, then we'll do separate videos examining each rig in greater detail. Now there's a Baofeng DM5R for comparison. The Pocketfone PF1 comprised separate receiver and transmitter units. The receiver had a clip and it was intended to be worn in a breast pocket. The transmitter didn't have a clip and it was intended to be worn in a holster such as this one, which was clipped onto a belt. It's a bit of a tight fit actually. Okay. So that was usually worn on the uniform belt, and if they heard a signal, if they heard a call coming on the radio, they'd have to whip this out and use it. The women police constables used to stick these in their shoulder bags instead. Just in case you didn't know what they were, the receiver had UHF receiver stamped on it and the transmitter had UHS transmitter. But unfortunately, almost all the examples I've got here have got no plaque left on them. At the time, there were marvels of miniaturisation. This is 1967, don't forget. But it's difficult to see how they could have made an actual transceiver unit. I mean, look at the size and the chunkiness of that. If you got them side by side or like that, it's quite a hefty thing. But funny thing is, they did make what they called a Pye Compact, which is basically two pocket phones in a plastic box, and it was about that size. But it was far from compact, and it wouldn't really have been suitable for the demands of day-to-day policing. So you can understand why the design ended up like this. We'll look first at the receiver. There are at least two versions of the receiver, so let's get the transmitter out of the way. That's the receiver. So here's the other version of the receiver. The early version had a tiny little transducer in there for the receive audio, which wasn't really loud enough. You could plug in an earpiece, but that wasn't always practical. You know, the cable got in the way. Now the later version, they put a proper speaker in there, which required a power bulge in the case, as you can see, and a slight internal modification because this one has got a plate aerial and that one uses the speaker itself as the aerial. So there's the two versions. There were probably other versions, but I don't know about them. I'm doing this from memory. It was many years ago when I last used these. These were single channel UHF sets, and they usually operated with the receivers in 452 megs and the transmitters 14 megs above in 464 to 466. That was the police frequencies, but they're also used by other services as well. And they operated on a 25 kilocycle channel spacing, as you can vaguely see stamped on the back there. 25 kilocycles. That was before it was called kilohertz. The rigs are all showing their age now, with the plastic becoming seriously discoloured. As you can tell, it's there's a variation of colour across the things. I mean, this one is quite crucial. Look at that. I don't know what that has suffered. And this one again is another different colour. They've not lasted very well. Mind you, they are over 50 years old, so we can't really complain, can we? As far as I know, the cases were usually two-tone like this. On the front, you've got a really substantial clip. That's not going to drop out your pocket very easily. On the side, there's the, I haven't got the screws in this one, the combined on-off switch and volume control. On the other side is the earphone socket. I think that was an acoustic tube thing where the transducer was probably at the bottom, and there was a tube. Not having very good focus today. On the top, you can just about see the aerial plate in there, and on the bottom you've got the battery door, which when you slide the battery in there, stayed quite shut, and the contacts for the drop-in charger and also for the car adapter. So you've got like positive, negative, and the centre one was an audio output for use in a car adapter. I'll do a separate video on the car adapter. When I've dug mine out, I've got one somewhere, but I'll dig it out because it's quite an interesting device anyway. Battery for the receiver was about the same size as a PP3, except that it's got 3 contacts. One was one polarity, probably positive. The 2 outer ones were negative. So you could actually put the battery in either way round. The 2 contacts in the receiver were here. So whichever way round you put the battery, it would make contact. Modify them to take either the standard dry cell or the NiCad version of the dry cell, because these batteries were getting hard to get a hold of, and when you did get hold of them, they were usually in a poor state. So you could take out the connector in the radio and replace it with one of these connectors, and use dry cells to your heart's content. Yeah, I've just changed the white paper so I can show you the colours a bit more accurately, and the discoloration. This isn't dirt, this is just discoloration, and you know, different ones are different coloured. I don't know whether they ever change the colour through the lifetime of the equipment, because they all seem to have slightly different colours. I mean, that is how I remember them, but was this a later series? I don't know. Somebody somewhere will know. Turning now to the transmitter, it had a microphone hole and a push to talk on the left. And the thing that fascinates everybody is the pop-up aerial, which I shall attempt to demonstrate. When you operate the push to talk, the aerial pops up. Now I'm sure that probably poked a few policemen in the eye. So there was another version, flattened top. So that one I got a pointed top, and that one the flattened top. So I think that one was probably not quite as harmful as that one. Actually, these could be unreliable. Sometimes they'd pop up and sometimes they wouldn't. This one can play up sometimes, although it's behaving. Ah, there you go. Yeah. If you push it down too hard, sometimes it doesn't latch properly. Now this is approximately a quarter wave whip, starting somewhere around about here. With the radio itself, the metal chassis inside the radio of the transmitter there, forming the other half of the aerial. So it was actually quite an efficient radiator. Though even though these rigs only produced 80 to 100 milliwatts, they actually radiated very well. And on the bottom of the transmitter, you had the charging contacts, only 2 on the transmitter, and the battery door. As you can see, this is rather corroded. The green is due to the batteries melting, and you can see it's a long way in there. This was a big battery, and look at the green on that. Look how green that is and rotten. Oh, this is a problem. Here's another one where the battery door is completely rotted away. There's no clip on it anymore, and the contacts have gone green. And here's another one where the greenness is even extended to the clip and the screw at the top there. So rotten batteries was a bit of a problem with these sets. Look at the contacts. The transmitter used a 18-volt battery, and it was twice the length of the little one. Let's see if we can show that. It was like 2 little ones in series, and it had the reversible contacts on the top, but as you can see, they did suffer quite badly with corrosion. The sets were usually charged by dropping them into a drop-in charger, and they could be left switched on while they were charging. And you could pop the batteries out and stick the batteries in a charger. I've got examples of both somewhere. There's various official Pye videos about the Pocketfone, usually extolling its virtues for use by policemen, ambulance drivers, bricklayers, just about everybody, delivery drivers, vets. But they show them used on building sites, but there's no way that they were loud enough to be used on a building site. But you have to take the marketing with a pinch of salt. If you're interested, go and have a look at some of those videos. Next, I shall be taking these things to pieces and showing you what the insides are like. And it might get a bit technical, but I'm doing this really to preserve the information for future generations. So if you're interested, look out for further videos. If you like this, give me a thumbs up to know that there's somebody out there who's actually watched the video. If you don't like it, give me a thumbs down, and tell me why. Put it in the comments, because if you give me feedback, I can get better, can't I? Bye.